I am a huge fan of Shueisha's colorization of manga. I am impressed by how many manga have been colorized and the skill that is put into them. They are a testament to the art of editing, in my opinion. So when Hamon Beat released a video of the colorization of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, I was overjoyed. I had never seen someone make such a well-informed video on this topic. Most people don't even know where these colorizations come from. I was also surprised by how highly critical he was, pointing out many errors in their work and even going so far as to call certain pages hideous. I want to preface by saying I do not disagree with Hamon Beat. This is not a response video or an attempt to debate. I think a lot of Hamon Beat's talking points were accurate regarding JoJo, but only JoJo alone. Shueisha does not treat every single manga series they colorize the same. At one point his video implies that most other colorizations aside from JoJo are worse, and that's simply not true. In fact, I believe One Piece's colorization is their magnum opus, so I wanted to go over just what makes this colorization brilliant so that people will be more appreciative of the work that goes into them. One thing that Hamon Beat discusses in his video is how the colored manga is transformative, and it becomes something entirely different from what Araki produced. This is true in the case of JoJo, but for One Piece, almost everything that makes the black and white manga great is preserved. Let's start with something simple, tone sheets. In the manga, nobody's inking scheme includes tone sheets by default, with the only exception being Shanks. This is different from a lot of other manga where a character's inking scheme will have a tone sheet by default, or even have it on and off with no real consistency. But in One Piece, tone sheets are for the most part only used to communicate a mood, and occasionally a lighting effect. Most fan colorings when going about coloring a One Piece page would just wash out these tone sheets and replace them with a color, because tone sheets are kinda messy when you put them into Photoshop and edit them. But the One Piece digital colored manga preserves these tone sheets. You can tell whenever a tone sheet is being used. They even keep the tone sheets in Shanks' red hair. To be fair, because of the low resolution it's released in, it can be hard to notice sometimes. This is because the releases are optimized for phone screens. However, through other forms of Shueisha media, we can more easily see the preservation of details like these. The use of black in color schemes is also preserved, but not in the same way. Sure, sometimes an inking scheme will remain pure black like Zoro's pants or Luffy's hair, but even when that's not the case and a black color scheme has been changed to something else, it can still be noticeable. Let's use Gladius as an example. His color scheme is almost entirely made of black, so as such Oda has to use every trick in the book to ink him. When parts of his suit fold onto each other, stripes and crosshatches can be used to demonstrate this, since the shape has no outline. In volume 77, we can see that Gladius's mask is actually white, which is surprising since his mask is mapped to black. In the colored manga, if you look closely, even though his mask is white, all the usual stripes and cross-hatching are still present. So even though it's colored as white, you can tell that it was mapped to black in the manga. The same goes for Luffy's outfit, or Zoro's, or anything. Let's use an example on the flip side, Nico Robin's dress in Wano. Like Gladius, her color mapping has been inverted, but this time it's the other way around. Something that was mapped to white in the manga is actually black, as confirmed in the volume 91 cover. But if you look at the black part, you can see that the dress folds on itself quite a bit, and unlike Gladius, those stripes and crosshatches are not used here, it's just colored normally. So even though it is literally the color black, you can still deduce that it was mapped to white in the manga. Another thing Hamon Beat discusses in his video is that many of the colors in the colored manga are flat out wrong. Jotaro's eyes are colored blue, even though they are greenish canonically. Once again, this does not happen in One Piece. If someone is not colored the same as they are in the anime, you can bet your ass that the colored manga was the one that was right about the color scheme. Robin's eyes are brown, Oda drew them that way. Frankie's hair is a slightly brighter hue of blue, Oda drew them that way. One detail that I really appreciate is how Law's hair is a dark blue. Most people wouldn't catch this since his hair is black in volume 69, but every other time Oda has drawn Law, it's a dark blue, and you can only tell from the very, very barely visible sideburns he has. One complaint I often hear about the One Piece colored manga is that characters that were tan in the anime are paler, and characters that are pale in the anime are tanner. There's a sort of homogeneous skin tone. And while I'd agree that aesthetically, varied skin tones are much better for the series, the colored manga is still grounded in accuracy. Every case I just showed you, that's the way Oda drew them. It's not simply the color schemes themselves that are so accurate, but the way it's colored. They don't just go about using a paint bucket tool on Microsoft Paint. They color it in the exact same style as Oda does, and they're even consistent with the time periods. Older volumes have a sort of pastel colorization to them, but as you go on, it gets more and more saturated. The digital colored manga is so on point that a chapter can transition from pages specifically colored by Oda himself, and then go to digitally colored pages, and I don't even notice the transition, because they're that on point. I wouldn't say the One Piece colored manga completely defeats the purpose of the black and white manga. That still has value. But what I would say is that I can't think of a single page where the colored version looks uglier. I also don't agree with the idea that the colored manga is not canon just because Oda didn't color it himself. What a lot of people don't seem to realize when they argue this is that most colored comics are not colored by the main artists. They are drawn in black and white and then colored in post. Coloring is simply too time-consuming for the original artists to do it themselves, especially if they're also the writer. JoJo's colorization is problematic. Hamon Beat was right about that. There are simply errors pointed out in that video that I cannot ignore or brush off. But Shueisha treats every manga differently. It all depends on what they're working with. If Dragon Ball's volume colors have flat colors, that's how Shueisha will color it. And if Bulma's hair was blue for the first 2 chapters and then it's just purple forever, they will do the same. The point I'm trying to make is that the only reason One Piece's colorization is so good is because Oda was already so consistent and passionate about the coloring. The goal of this video was to get people to talk about the colored manga more, but not in as negative of a light as Hamon Beat did. Because I think a lot of work and passion is put in there that you simply cannot get with AI-produced colorizations or fan-made colorizations. Talking about the colored manga more and showing that there is English demand for this will help it grow. At one point, Viz tried to release Dragon Ball Z in full color. They even gave the option to buy it in print, which is not an option in Japan. Trust me, if I could buy the One Piece colored manga physically in any language, I'd already own every volume. And that's coming from a man who already owns the black and white in every volume. But in the end, Viz only got a couple of arcs into Dragon Ball Z before dropping the full color release. And it makes me extremely sad to think about that. If only it had sold well, I can only imagine just how many colored manga we'd have officially translated and available to buy right now.